Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Back Lounge Podcast. My name is Tank. I'm your host. I'm a roadie with over 15 years of experience in the touring music industry, and on this podcast, for anybody that's new, we get to invite bands, musicians, other roadies, and anybody else in the industry and just have conversations about whatever we feel like talking about. And today's episode is episode 10. And I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, but 10 episodes of this already, man, is kind of wild to me because I honestly didn't know how this podcast was going to do or how it was going to work when I first started. So the fact that we're getting through this many already is really cool. And on top of that, I've just been kind of blown away with the response from you guys that listen. You know, the videos are available on YouTube, but then the audio is available on Spotify, Apple, Google, all that stuff. And the numbers on the audio end have been really cool to see, man. I mean, this podcast is already charting in countries around the world, man. And I just never would have thought that. So 10 episodes in, man, I'm super fired up because today we have a super awesome guest. Somebody that I was so excited to get on here. Almost couldn't believe that I had the opportunity to. I'm talking about Peter Iwers from the Halo Effect. Now, Peter has been around the music scene for quite a while, man. He's been in the Gothenburg music scene in Sweden since the 90s, has been involved with a lot of people, and is most known for being the longtime bass player of In Flames, which is one of my personal favorite bands. And before we started this podcast episode, Peter didn't know this, but that dude is one of my heroes when it comes to playing bass, man. When I was a teenager, he's one of the reasons I wanted to start playing bass guitar. I spent countless hours in my bedroom as a kid, like playing all of his parts from some of the older In Flames albums. So to finally actually get to talk to him was so cool, man. And I'm excited for you guys to hear this. Now, nowadays, the guy has his hands super full with a lot of different stuff. He owns a brewery outside of Gothenburg called Odd Island Brewing, and he owns that with Daniel, who was the former drummer for In Flames and his current bandmate in the band that we're about to talk about. He also owns a restaurant in Gothenburg called 2112, and he owns that with Bjorn, the current guitar player for In Flames. And of course, we have the brand new band, The Halo Effect, which I've done reactions to on YouTube, and their album that's coming out is one of my most anticipated of this year. It's going to be their debut album. It's called Days of the Lost, and it's going to release on August 12th, 2022 from Nuclear Blast Records. Now, if anybody's watching this on YouTube, I'll throw links in the description of the video where you can go check out their social medias, check out their touring schedule, because they do have a badass tour coming up with Machine Head and Amon Amarth over in Europe. But you can also go pre-order the album and help support these guys, man, because first release, I'm already so excited about this. And if you're listening on audio and you can't, see the links in the description of the video, you can also go to thehaloeffect.band and you can check out their latest videos, pre-order the album, all of that good stuff, man. Lots of ways to support these guys. We'll talk about that more in the podcast, but let's just jump into this one, man. Episode 10 of the Back Lounge Podcast. Let's welcome Peter Iwers to the show. So, Peter, welcome to the podcast. How are you, man?
Thank you. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very good. I'm very excited for this episode. And
cool. Me too.
But before we really get going, I'm just gonna feed your ego a little bit here because I don't think I've told you this.
Bring it.
This podcast for me is so full circle with how my life revolving around music has worked. Because when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, you were, and pretty much still are, like my bass hero. Like you're one of the reasons. You're one of the reasons I started playing bass when I was a teenager.
Wow, that's thank you.
So
it's super cool.
Yeah, it's like countless hours when I was a teenager of playing through like Colony and Clayman and Reroute and stuff, and then here we are. It's just wild how the world works.
Well, it's fantastic. Thank you so much. That means a lot to hear.
Yeah, of course, man. But man, well, as I told you, we don't have anything prepared. We're just going to talk. So this is
Works for
probably
me.
this is probably going to get interesting because there's so much to talk about. Not only do you have new music coming out, but you've also got a brewery and a restaurant, and so we're going to get into some stuff. But
Sure.
let's just start at the basic, that everybody knows about, the halo effect.
Basic. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
basic, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, for me, the halo effect seemed to come out of nowhere. Like I hadn't really heard anything about it, and then all of a sudden, all my Swedish and mostly just Scandinavian friends and stuff were like, dude, you have to check out this group that just came out. And obviously everybody that's heard it knows the background of the band. All you guys have been in the music scene together forever. But was the halo effect something that you guys had been working on or planning for a while, or did it just kind of spontaneously happen and you went with it?
Well, I guess it depends who of us you ask, but I mean, we've been talking about playing together again for quite some time. And then I guess the stars were aligned when this, not saying the pandemic was a good thing, but it has had its moments where you got a lot of time off to time to do stuff. So Niklas came to me and asked me, would you like to do something? And or would you and Daniel like to do something? Because we were at the brewery at the time. And we talked it through. It's like, yeah, it would be really cool to do something. And who else? Who would be singing? And Michael is one of my best friends. And it's like, talk to him. And I never played with him ever. So I guess it was very spontaneous because at the same time, Niklas had spoken to Michael on a train ride back from like a Grammy Award thing or something like that in Sweden, like a year ago or a year earlier. And so when I suggested Michael, he had already spoken to Michael. And then I called Michael up. Would you be able? Would you want to do this? And I was like, yeah, is this for real now? Then yeah, let's do it. Yeah. So it kind of started like that, and then we just sat in my other. Well, I had all this stuff is crammed in my basement right now, but I have a house in the backyard where I had it set up before. Now it's a training studio there. So we met there and we listened to some ideas and we started creating some music. And then Niklas had tons of ideas that he showed us, and it kind of grew from there. So I guess in his mind, it was probably something that he planned and wanted to ask us also. But from my point of view, I think that it just, it just came at the right moment with the right people.
Yeah, as a lot of things do. I mean, like you said, the pandemic necessarily or wasn't necessarily a good thing, but there were a lot of people that made like the best of having that time and being away from their other jobs and stuff like that. I mean, over this whole thing, it's like I started the YouTube channel, which I never planned on doing ever. I only did it because I couldn't tour. We got sent home as most other people did. And then my wife and I had our first child. Our daughter just turned 1 a month ago, and it's been pretty amazing to be home for that because had we been touring still, I probably would have had to go back out on tour and I wouldn't be seeing her as much, So we've kind of made the best of everything, and now it's getting to the point where tours are starting to happen again, and I feel like I want to take like 1 or 2 tours a year just to keep doing it. My wife has said she's fine with it. So later I'm going back out on tour this year, and it's really cool. But my first initial, I think you saw it, but my first reaction to the halo effect, which was Shadow Minds, which was most people's first introduction.
I saw it.
It was like,
made me really happy, man.
Well, thank you. I mean, made me happy. Like I had that moment where I had seen all these metal outlets and all these music outlets, billing you guys as the new In Flames. And I get it, but I feel like it's a little unfair. There were some outlets like Blabbermouth and Metal Sucks and stuff that were making it seem like it was some rivalry where you guys were starting a band to like stick it to the old guys. And I'm like, that's not what it seems like to me at all.
No. It couldn't be further from the truth. And it's like somebody said it to me like perfectly. When you get that question, talk about In Flames, talk about it, it's like, well, it's like talking about your ex-wife, it's like you had it was great at that time, but then you moved on, right?
Yeah.
So the halo effect started out of love for music. not at all to spike anybody or to, you know, create some rivalry.
Yeah.
Nothing like that at all. And it needs to be said, and it probably will be said a bunch of times, because it's, I mean, sorry, my
No, you're fine.
voice is cracking up. The love for music and the love for each other is 100% what it's all about.
Yeah. And I mean, you know how the internet works nowadays, though. People need
Yeah.
those headlines, you know, and I think any music fan can see that and know that that's not at all what it is, because, you know, you guys are still connected in some ways too. Like that would be a
Sure.
really awkward thing for you guys to do that and then have to see some of those guys, you know?
And it would be like totally the wrong reason as well. I mean, I do everything I do a base upon how I feel. You know, I try to do everything with a good vibe and everything that makes me feel good, feel great.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about with everything that I do. So if I would ever start something to piss somebody else off, then it wouldn't make me feel good, and I couldn't keep on doing it. So
Yeah.
it's real simple in my world, but I understand how people think that and how some people would like to think that. But there's no rivalry. You know, In Flames, I was a member for 20 years, and you know, it's you know, it is what it is. It's a great band, and it always will be.
Yeah, and it's funny because like I think some people took it the wrong way when I said it too. I said this band sounds more like In Flames than In Flames does now, and there were some people that thought I was taking a shot at them, and I was like, guys, I have the Jester head tattooed on me. Like In Flames will always be one.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, In Flames will always be one of my favorite bands ever. It's just that first initial reaction to hearing the Halo Effect, especially in that first music video when everybody was individually introduced walking into the set. I mean, I had one of those moments where I was like, holy shit. Like, and it wasn't just, you know, you guys being from In Flames, it was Michael as well. It's like In Flames, Dark Tranquility, At the Gates, Soilwork, that built my foundation of what I liked about metal when I was a kid. So I think the Halo Effect initially for me was just such a good nostalgic feeling. And then hearing the sound is the same thing. I'm like, this is the soundtrack of my teenage years now while I'm an adult and a dad. And, you know, it's really cool.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, it's not really weird that it sounds the way that it does, because we've been playing this music for such a long time, and obviously a bunch of us played together in Flames, and it's very natural to write this type of music. But the fun thing, when we started writing, there was no like thought or agenda on the type of sound we were going to have. We just wrote music, and it ended up sounding the way that it does because of how we play.
Yeah.
You know, my bass tone and Daniel's drumming, and Niklas and Jesper's guitars, and then adding Michael to that. You know, it's very very natural.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, you got to understand that Gothenburg, where we all live, is super small, and being on the road for 20 something years, you don't make a lot of new friends back home, because you tend to keep your old friends. You know, even though I've been off the road for a few years now, it's like, these are my buddies. These are the people that I do hang out with, and it's very very easy then to, you know, just start a band. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that over the past 2 years while we've been home, the majority of people that I've talked to are my friends that I was touring with, because that's being on the road for that long. That's all you know. You know the people that you're sharing a bus with and the people that you're seeing every day. I mean, it sounds horrible to say it, but I tell people, like, there are guys that I've spent more time with on the road than I've spent with my actual wife, because we're always working, you know? So but, and it's, you know, the sound for me is so just stereotypical of that Gothenburg sound that I'm used to. And there's a lot of different sounds coming out of Sweden right now. And it was cool to just hear that, you know, everything I expect from that Gothenburg sound with the band. And, you know, 3 singles now already. And I've already pre-ordered the album, and I'm super excited. For anybody listening, that album comes out on August 12th.
Yes, it does.
Dude, it's probably my most anticipated album of the year. It for sure top 3. Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, mine too, I'd say, because I mean, we've had this music now written for quite some time and recorded for, you know, quite some time, and we lived with it for such a long time, and that's always the case, obviously, for any artist, you know. But now it's been like we had to keep this a secret for such a long time since the pandemic was, and we didn't want to release something and then not being able to go out and play some shows for 3 years. So once we kind of knew that it was starting to end, we made some plans with Nuclear Blast and how we were going to do this, and get it out. But I mean, I love the songs, I love the album, and it's so much of everybody in them, and I can't wait for people to hear the whole album. Can't wait. It's going to be so much fun.
It's going to be great, man. And once the album comes out, do you guys, if you can talk about it, do you have any solid touring or live show plans that you guys are going to be doing?
Well, we're doing the festivals, and I think they're all announced now pretty much this summer. And then as the album comes out, then we go on tour with Machine Head and Amon and Mark.
That's right. I forgot about
in Europe and the UK.
Yeah.
So that's the one, big thing that we have planned. That's official that I can talk about. But I'm really looking forward to that. It's a big tour with two great bands and people that I know from the past. I've never toured with Amon, but I've met them numerous times, and I know the guys. And Machine that I have toured with, great people.
Yeah.
It's going to be, and I know a lot of the crew. It's going to be there are people that I've worked with in the past and seen, and I'm just looking forward to a big family reunion and going on the road and playing shows and enjoying ourselves. Yeah. I gotta find out if I can still stand with my legs like far apart for an hour though. We don't know.
Dude, I feel like I'm doing a tour starting in October this year. And already I told my wife, I was like, I feel like I need to go back to the gym or something. Like I haven't done this in 2 years. Like, and
same here. I'm working hard in the gym and running and doing all that just to make myself feel good, obviously, but also to get in shape. It takes some time. It's really easy to destroy the shape, but it takes a long time to build it back up. So I'm preparing.
And it's just as well as I do what it's like on the road. And you've had way more experience on the road than I have, but it's interesting because your crew guys are usually on their feet for, depending on what kind of tour you're talking, 10 to 12 hours a day. But then the band is going to be doing stuff all day as well on the side, and then has to go on the stage and just go, an hour of 100% energy the whole time. And that's draining. I mean, it's a lot of stamina.
Well, I mean, both yes and no. That's the part that I always loved the most, because usually that's why we were there, to go on stage and meet people and interact and just play your music that's what it's all about. So that's what you're waiting for the whole day. I'm usually an early riser, so I go up and I go for a walk or a run or to the gym or whatever, just to run around. And then there's the whole rest of the day, and then you play late at night. And but going on stage has always been when you get that energy kick and the energy boost, and that's what it's all about. That's why I kept on touring for so many years, because that's the part that I really, really loved.
Yeah, I think for me too, the actual stage show was the part of the night that, and it's funny for me just as a tech, because I could have the shittiest day ever. Stuff could break. I'd have to repair stuff all day. I'd not be getting along with people. But the second that show starts, even though I'm just in a support role off the stage, there's something about the energy and the adrenaline kick that you get that is just amazing. And it's I missed that.
Yeah, me too. I went to, well, as you know, I went to a show last night, and I mean, just going back to shows now, it's just feels amazing. And I looked at the scheduling in shows in Gothenburg. It's so many shows all the time. Everything that's been rescheduled is happening now. So many bands, so in each genre, that I love it. Fantastic.
Is Sticky Fingers still putting on shows?
It's putting on some shows. It's a different. The guy who used to run it for many years, his name is Manko. Magnus Axe is his professional name. He's a guitar player. He sold it a bunch of years ago, and there's been some acts trying to reawake it. I'm not quite sure how it works right now. I know there's a show with my other old band, Syra, this Thursday that I probably will go and watch. But I don't know how many shows. There's a couple of different venues that put on shows now. Instead of took it over.
Because I was always intrigued by Sticky Fingers because of the In Live We Trust DVD with that set that you guys did there.
Yeah.
And then I heard that it had closed, but then one of our Swedish friends on Discord said that it was open again. And you know, I gotta imagine there's just the Swedish music scene in general. Like, for example, Sabaton is doing a tour right now in Sweden, and they're
Yeah.
basically just playing clubs in like 30 different cities in Sweden. And I'm
Yeah, they're
like,
doing that, going to out to all the small cities and doing that, and it's
that's so
I
cool.
love that. I love that thing. You know, it's a really cool way to connect with the fans and to go out and instead of just. I mean, it's wonderful to play a big stage with a big audience, but also to get down and dirty and sweaty in a small club is it's that's what it's all about. You know,
Yeah.
so I think that's a great thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
They played like they played a small suburbs. It's not even a city, but like 20 minutes outside of Gothenburg just last week, and I didn't even know about it, but it's like they played there. You know, it's like it's pretty cool. You know,
Yeah.
because they're obviously one of Sweden's biggest bands, and I
Hmm.
think that's it's cool to do stuff like that.
Yeah, when I had Hannes, their drummer, was the first guest on this podcast, and
Oh,
he
he's a
told
great
me,
guy.
oh, he's awesome, and he was telling me he was almost looking forward to that tour more than doing like the arenas and stuff because he's like those old rock clubs and stuff are like it gets you back to your roots.
Yeah,
Like that's what rock and metal is just those clubs, you know?
yeah. Well, I mean, when you're because we did the same thing with In Flames a couple of times, and when you're in that fantastic position where you actually get to choose to do that, then it's obviously it's fantastic. But you can also choose to go back to the big stage now
Hmm.
for bands such as Halo Effect, for instance. That's probably where we'll when we do our first tour, we'll do the club tours as our option, and it'll be a little different, but it's still the part of going out and getting in your face with the audience. That's I really love that.
When you were in Flames, were you still there when Joe started drumming after Daniel, or were you gone at the same time?
No, I was there. We did that album Battles
Battles,
with
yeah.
Joe, and then I did one tour, I think, a couple of shows in one tour, and then I just felt that I'm done. I
Yeah.
want to go home.
The
Hmm?
No, I was gonna say the only reason I ask is because I used to drum tech for Joe in the band that he was in before you guys,
Red.
and yeah, and
Yeah,
I'm
I
pretty
I knew that. I
yeah,
read it somewhere.
I'm pretty sure I may have introduced him to In Flames at some point because
Cool. Yeah.
he grew up in like the Texas like metalcore scene and stuff like that. And when I was working for Red, I used to listen to, a lot of In Flames and a lot of other stuff. And they knew how much I liked the band. And Joe and I lived together at one point in Nashville
Really? Yeah.
and for just a tour. Because he was living in Texas, I was living in Illinois, and we decided to just rent a place together so we didn't have to drive back and forth. But yeah, that was another one of those full circle moments where it's like
Yeah.
after he left Red and then I stopped working for Red as well. Um, he hit me up randomly one day and he's like, "Hey, I'm recording an album with In Flames." And then shortly after that, it was like, "Hey, I'm drumming for them now." And I was like, "This is so." The music world, like you said, is just so small. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's wild. Um, and then
Joe's a great guy. I gotta say, I didn't get to know him too much, obviously, because we did the album and then a couple of tours. But
yeah,
super nice guy,
he's
fantastic
a
drummer.
he's a great drummer, and I was so surprised. Honestly, I know what he's capable of. I worked for the guy, I set up his drums every day. But when he told me that he joined In Flames, I had never seen him drum like that.
No,
Because while Red does have some parts here and there that have like some double bass and stuff like that, like it was more hard rock style drumming for the most part. And then when I first saw videos of him playing with you guys, I was like, damn, I've literally never seen or heard this guy play like this before.
yeah,
It was really cool to see.
yeah. No, I can imagine. He was more of a hard rock drummer, kind of, if you ask me,
Yeah,
than that.
yeah,
But he did it really, really well. And Daniel's drum parts are really difficult to figure out, as I understood, because he's one of those guys that's self-taught, never really did. He played stuff his way, with when somebody was gonna copy it, or we had a standing drummer here and there, and everybody had lots of problems doing it because it was just so unorthodox way of
yeah.
playing, kind of. And that's I guess how we all are, you know, when none of us went to a music teacher, none of us know the classical way or the right way. We just played, you know. So
Yeah.
for Joe to go in and you know do that with being a different style of drummer, like you said, I think it was really, really cool.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about what you were just talking about, because so many people put emphasis and credibility on music schooling. Like if you find out a musician went to some music academy, you're like, oh, they must be able to play anything and they're really good. But there's something about self-taught musicians, like you said, that have a certain level of unorthodox technique to them,
Yeah.
where knowing less allows you to do more because you're not thinking about what you
No, you're
were
just
taught you
playing.
should be
Yeah.
doing. Yeah.
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 I mean, it's not dissing anybody who's going to music school. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. And they're, you know, I'm a huge like Dream Theater fan and stuff like that. And they're all, you know, very, very schooled musicians as far as I know, you know,
Oh
but
yeah.
a fantastic band. But just saying that, you know, coming from a different type of music and getting into that type of drumming, I was impressed.
Yeah. I mean, I was the same way when I picked up bass. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I was trying to learn when I was younger was just turning on records that myself or my dad had and just listening over and over and trying to play. Like I had
Yeah.
no schooling with anything that I did in terms of drums and bass either. The only schooling I did was for saxophone, which I haven't touched for 15 years. Yeah, so
I'm trying to learn saxophone.
no way.
Yeah, because I love jazz and I love the instruments. So I bought a saxophone. Well, I'm not saying I'm not trying to learn. I'm a little bit too lazy because I kind of it's like when I got it and I started, it's like I realized I don't even know how to play anything. So I had to
Yeah.
look online a little bit and started playing some stuff. But then I ended up when I couldn't reach certain notes and I had no clue on how to get a higher or lower octave and stuff like that. So kind of put it aside. It's my saxophone case is right there.
Nice.
Uh, but I really at some point I'm going to learn. But I'm looking for a teacher.
A lot
I'm looking for
of
somebody who can actually teach me like in
I
physical.
oh, if I'd be able to, I would say I would do it in a second, but I haven't played in like 15 years, but at one point when I was in high school, I was actually like chaired in state. Like I learned on an alto saxophone, and then
Yeah.
I switched to baritone saxophone when I was a teenager. And the hardest part about saxophone, in my opinion, is actually the shapes that you make with your mouth on the reed, like on those
Yeah.
woodwind instruments. I mean, once you learn the actual notes and placements and stuff like that, I actually think even now it's so ingrained in my head that I could probably pick it up and still know all the notes just holding it.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any way I'd be able to make a decent sound now, because that shape that you make with your mouth has to be so practiced, especially
Yeah.
when you're hitting higher and lower notes. You have to change what you're doing.
So that's how you're doing it. Like you're you know pushing harder to get a higher note, or is like just
Yeah, or pursing your lips more on the mouthpiece and stuff like that.
interesting.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and
See, I
and
never got there.
yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean, there are octaves on the actual instrument that you can hit, but
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of that tone is from what you're actually doing with your air and your mouth movements and stuff with the instrument. And it was a really cool instrument to learn and play when I was younger, but then I got into metal and thought it was cooler to play drums or bass.
It is cooler, but when you're younger, no. But it's obviously it's individual. But I've discovered like I really really love like old school jazz, and a lot of it has a lot of saxophone, and it's nothing beats it.
Yeah. There's a band that I discovered when I started my channel, like death metal band called Rivers of Nile. I don't know if you're familiar with
Hmm.
them.
No, no.
They they have many tracks on their album that has saxophone in it, and it is the wildest thing to hear a death metal band that has saxophone leads going in their parts. And
I gotta check that out.
it somehow works.
What's the name of the band?
Rivers of Nile. They're
Rivers of
on
Nile.
I
I'll
think they're
write that.
on Metal Blade. But
Rivers of Nile. Cool. I'll
yeah,
check that out.
it's they actually have an album. I actually have it up on my wall here. Their latest album is called The Work, and it is fantastic from start to finish. And there's so many
Cool.
saxophone parts and stuff in it that's just so cool.
I'll check that out. That's great. I'm really bad at discovering new music. I tend to, the older I get, the older music I listen to. Go back to Aretha Franklin and all that stuff. Really old stuff. that I really love. So it's interesting with new music that when it actually is good.
Same. And I actually think I got to credit doing this YouTube thing to really getting back into music, because working in the music industry, for me, I was always kind of absorbed into whatever bands I was working for. I was very familiar with their music and the music with the bands that were on tour with them and the radio and stuff like that. And a lot of the stuff that I listened to for the past 10 years is all stuff that I was listening to as a teenager, or that I grew up with my dad and stuff like that. And ever since I've started this YouTube channel, I've checked out more and more stuff. Like, for example, last night, I recorded a reaction to the new Machine Head single. That is the first new Machine Head song I've listened to in 10 years.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. Like, I listened to Machine Head when I was young, around the same age I discovered In Flames and all those bands. So it was like Burn My Eyes and The More Things Change and The Burning Red and all that. And for some reason, I just fell out of the band. It had nothing to do with them or the music. It was, I think I discovered more things as I was growing, and my musical taste just went a different direction. And then I finally sat down and listened to more of their new stuff last night. And I was like, damn, I've missed a lot.
Like, but isn't that great when you kind of rediscover stuff?
Yeah.
And you're like, that's the beauty of music. It's timeless. Obviously you can hear, certain age of certain types of music, but just that it never disappears. Doesn't matter if you haven't heard them in a while, they're still going to be there, and you'll still have a huge treasure to go back to and discover. And that's what I love the most about music, I guess, that it's always going to be there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's people's frame of reference on stuff is wild too, because there are bands that in my mind are huge that other people say they've never heard of. And then the same thing happens with me. I mean, when I started this YouTube channel, I was doing reactions to bands where there were people, I got called out by people that were like, you're full of shit. There's no way you've never listened to this band before. And I was like, well, you got to keep in mind too, there's a big separation between the North American music market and the European music market a lot of the times. So, for example, a band like Sabaton or Nightwish or something like that, like I had heard their names before, but I had never actually sat down and really listened to their music until I started this channel.
Yeah.
And it's just opened me up to a whole new world of music. And I'm more in love with music right now than I think I've been like since I was a teenager.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So let's talk about beer.
We can. I have one right here.
Yeah. One of the, as we said earlier, you've got your hands in a lot of different things. And one of them is co-owning a brewery with your drummer, Daniel.
Yes.
I'm so curious on that. I've read quite a few things about it, but for the sake of the podcast and people listening, how did that whole brewery develop? How did you guys get the idea that like, hey, we're going to make beer now?
I guess going back to when we started touring, I have to say this first, because when we started touring, obviously we always liked beer, but when you're younger, it's like we were only after the effect, obviously, to get drunk.
Yeah.
Have fun and drink beer and, throw darts or play music or whatever. That was what it was all about. Give us the easiest thing to drink and we'll drink it, But then as time moved on, people started throwing us with, especially in America, started throwing us like local beers from each, because you guys are way ahead of the Swedish craft beer scene. Mm-hmm. And there was always this flowery, bittery shit. We always threw it away.
Yeah.
Fuck, you should give this, or not threw it away, but we always like put it. We had a shower in the bus usually, and we always put it there. And by the end of the tour, we found some lucky person who got like 10 cases.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that move.
As the year went on, I guess we all got a little interested in trying flavors rather than chugging 15 beers all the time. And Daniel especially was interested in this, and I guess he went into local craft beer pubs, and we started going into breweries and stuff like that. And I was still not so keen on it. I like the American Pale Ale. It was always very easy to get in, but I wasn't too keen on the IPAs or stuff like that. But he was. So he started homebrewing, and just started fiddling with the idea. What am I going to do if I ever quit music? I need to do something. I've never had a job. I've never done anything, that I have no knowledge besides playing drums. And at the same time, I had the restaurant. We can talk about that later. But I started that for kind of the same reason, to have something on the side, something to fall back on, like a side hobby or whatever. And so he started brewing. He started bringing his brews on tour, on festivals and stuff, and it was really, really good. And one day when we were talking, he mentioned to me that he was going to leave the band, and we went on talking through everything, and what went up to this moment and stuff. And then he said, "I'm going to start a brewery because that's what I want to do on the side." And he did. And I said, "Well, once you're ready to sell a beer, I'll buy it into my restaurant." And so he called me up one day. "Okay, I have a few kegs here now. Can you buy those?" "Yeah, sure." And we did, and we went out and just sold it. At this point, it was only Daniel, and it was so good and it was so popular. And I just asked him, "It's like, dude, you're awesome at this, but I noticed that you're not too keen on advertising stuff, or making PR for yourself and stuff like that." "No, it's not really my thing." "It's my thing. I can do that, if you want." So we waited a couple of months until he had more experience and more stuff, and then I climbed aboard. I called him up one day. This is after he quit In Flames. Call him up. Shouldn't we start doing this now? You brew the beer and I'll promote it and sell it. I was like, "Yeah, let's do that." So we started. It was just the two of us, and it was so cool because we went back to kind of like how it was when we started a band. You lift your own equipment. You tune your own instruments. You load in, load out, do all that stuff by yourself. But by the time we quit In Flames, we had people working for us who did all that stuff. But starting a brewery was going back to the roots. We did everything ourselves, including going to buying hops and malts and stuff like that. And he brewed everything, and then we bottle everything by hand together, like one side of the table. We had like the small little, I don't know what it's called, but a small little thing. We had 3 bottles at a time. And he filled those, gave them to me. I capsuled them, and then we put them into another room so they could ferment, right? And we did that. And then once they were done, I would promote it, and I would sell it to a Swedish monopoly called Systembolaget, and various pubs. And it grew from there, and we got some more people in. So it started out of a interest from beer and interest in flavors from his side, and I kind of, went in with what I think that I'm pretty good at, PR. And I guess if he would have started selling stamps, maybe that's what we would have been doing now. So it wasn't just the beer for me; it was working with Daniel, and I know he's so super thorough when it comes to whatever he does, and I have never ever doubted his capability of doing something 100% from his heart, And if he wouldn't be satisfied with it, he would pour it out. Yeah. So, and that's what I was interested in, because that's something that I can relate to, and I trust him, and he, and I like beer, obviously.
Yeah.
It didn't help, and it didn't hurt that it was a brewery that he wanted to start. So that's a long story, but that's kind of how came about.
It's a cool story though, man. I mean, hearing you guys go from music to that, and now, like currently, you guys actually have a very good sized brewery.
Yeah.
Do you?
Well, yeah.
Well, obviously,
there are bigger ones.
Yeah, because I've never been there, obviously. How is it run in there? Do you guys actually have a tap room where people can come in and try stuff, or Yeah,
we do. We have a tap room now. Now it's actually full on restaurants, because the laws in Sweden are like, it's a little square. I'd say they're a little bit behind, a little afraid of alcohol. And what we do is not trying to get people drunk. We try to teach people about flavors and tastes, and that it's actually okay to drink, just to try the taste. It's not about the buzz all the time, even though it can be a nice compliment, but so we had a tap room, but the law said that you could only serve 8 servings per person, of like small, like this, like 15 centiliters. I don't know how that is in your measurement, but
I'm actually good with metric, so I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, a very, very little, which is fine as far as tasting. But then, since we were a little different, we had we always hired local food trucks to kind of get in this whole flavor thing. We try, this type of beer with that type of food. So we had different food trucks every day. Like we were open Fridays and Saturdays, so every day was a different food truck. But in order to get well, that meant that people wanted to stay longer and drink more beer and have dinner and not get hammered, but have a good time for a long time. But in order for us to sell full size beers, we needed to build a kitchen and have our own menu, kind of, and that's what we've done now. So we're opening actually in 3 weeks. We're opening the restaurant, Odd Island restaurant, where you can buy full size beers that's produced in the back room and drink as many as you like. And when you're too plastered, we'll say no more.
That's so cool, man. We have similar rules here. Like, I've lived in Nashville for about 12 years, and the bars here have similar rules where if you don't serve food, there's only a certain amount of beer you can sell. So a lot of the bars here have they've gone through this loophole where as long as you offer the food, you can sell the beer. So we have tap rooms here that on their menu have like frozen pizzas listed for $200 because they don't want anybody to actually buy it. But it allows them to sell the beer. And it's funny to hear you say that like Sweden is a little square with like consuming alcohol, because the stereotype to me is like, most Swedes, Finns, I mean, Scandinavia in general, like people drink. And one of my moderators on Discord is Swedish. And when he first explained to me what Systembolaget, I was like, wait, so you only have liquor stores that your government controls? Like nobody can just open a liquor store or something? And he's like, no. I was like, that's wild.
Well, it is, and it's a long history of it. It started out with people drinking too much. Obviously, they wanted to take control. These days, when we have I think we have 400 breweries in Sweden or something like that, and there's only 5 major ones, and then the rest of us are microbreweries. So we have Systembolaget, which allows us to get really good distribution throughout the whole country for kind of cheap. Shouldn't we have it, we would have to supply that ourselves, which would be obviously very expensive. But there are some stuff that we're trying to work in now that we can actually, if people come to the tap room, they should be able to buy a 6-pack with them home or stuff like that. We can do that now, but then it's like low ABV beer. We call it folköl, which is people's beer with the correct translation. But if it's stronger than the 3.5%, then you have to go to Systembolaget and buy it that way. So we're trying to work out a way where we can combine the two, because I don't want to get rid of it. I think it's great when it comes to us smaller. We can we send everything to their warehouse, and then they distribute it out to whoever wants to order it.
Oh, cool.
So it actually works pretty good, but it's hard to grow on it because they have certain rules. So you can't just say, I think we have 480 different Systembolagets in Sweden, and you can't just say, I want to be on all of them. You have to work your way in. You have to, sell enough to do that. And it's a little difficult.
Yeah.
It's a long process. It takes too long.
Yeah.
But so
with the I mean, the whole business side of it is like, I'm sure like any business, there's a lot of little things that people don't think about. I mean, I would have never thought about half the stuff you were talking about either. But with the restaurant opening at the brewery, you've obviously got experience with that because you also have 2112, which has got to be a Rush. That's a Rush reference, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just making sure. Like the first time I saw that, I read about that. How long has it been open now? It's been at least.
No, it's going to be, it's going to be 12 years now.
12.
It has been 12 years. We did. The thing is, since we celebrate our anniversaries in end of April. So we usually pick a little different date depending on if it's a weekend or not. This year we actually didn't celebrate. We will, but because we had to celebrate it's 11 years because we celebrate our 10th anniversary on the 2112 day, 21st of December, which is where we always have a big party regardless. Because when it was in 2021, when it was the actual 10th anniversary, it was pandemic and we had nobody there. We had so many stupid rules that I think that, we had to sit down and you weren't allowed more than 4 people at a table and you had to keep like 1.5 meters in between and blah, blah. So it's like, well, I sat at the restaurant and was like, well, happy birthday. That was like 15 other
Oh,
people, because that's all you could fit. So we moved the anniversary to the 21st of December, and kind of felt too soon to have a different one already in April, even though it's the correct date. So yeah, it's been quite some years.
I was gonna say, I remember reading an article. It was probably one of the metal outlets, but when they said that, I think you still run it with Bjorn, right?
Yeah.
When it said that you guys were opening a restaurant and I saw the name was 2112, I remember I was with a buddy and I looked at him and I was like, "Oh, it's somebody likes Rush." And he's like, why do you say that?" And I was like, 2112? And he's like, "I don't get it." And I'm like, "Oh my God, come on." Like,
I
um,
mean, it was so much fun. We were four people that started it, and one of them was a guy that was with us for a long time on the road called Victor. I think he's out with In Flames now again.
okay.
As I don't know exactly what he does, but he's helping the band out, I think. And he's a great buddy, and we were sitting around just talking about names, and we decided that Burn was pretty cool. Deep Purple was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, it's too long.
Yeah.
Awesome album. And just went through it like that. And but then he just said, "What about 2112?" It's like, yes,
Yeah.
because it's classy. It sounds classy.
Yep.
If you know Rush, it's amazing. But it just felt right. So we started that, and I don't know how many times I told the story about the Rush album and the what it's all about, 2112 and stuff like that. But it's So it's been around for quite some time.
Yeah. I actually kind of like Burn too. Like, and it's funny because frame of reference, right when you said Burn, my head was already at Deep Purple, like without you even saying anything else.
Yeah. Bjorn really likes that, so that was his suggestion. It was like, great, yeah, that's great, but there's something. So, but when Victor suggested 2112, it's like, fuck yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Great.
And
yeah,
so over 10 years now of that. So how close is that restaurant in proximity to your brewery? Are they similar distance or in the similar area? Or
no, it's about a 20 minute drive.
Okay.
So the brewery is south of Gothenburg in a place called Lindome, which is 15-20 minutes from the center of Gothenburg. But it's like you have to drive towards Malmö down on the highway and then exit the freeway and go into like a little suburb there. And the restaurant is downtown Gothenburg.
Yeah. And even though you are involved with both and co-own both, it's completely separate businesses, right? So you're you're buying beer from yourself for your other restaurant.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But I do have actually somebody doing that for me, because otherwise it's going to be too much. It's like, we have a really, really great restaurant chef who knows what to get, and he does what he wants. It's like, if one of our beers doesn't sell well, then he won't buy it again. And I told him that's totally fine. This is 100% you.
Yeah.
So which is nice. If I were to do everything, it would be too much.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that you guys made it through the pandemic with both businesses, especially the restaurant too, because we had a lot of local places here that did not make it through the pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean,
we'll still see. We'll make it, because we were smart when we had some good years. And so we kind of reinvested the money that we made into the business and into the staff. So first thing we told our people was that none of you are going to get fired, because a lot of people were afraid about that, since the government really, they tore down the restaurant business really hard, made it really difficult, and a lot of people borrowed money from the government, postponed their taxes and stuff like that. And a lot of those people are now in a position where they need to pay that back. And we never did that. But we were fortunate enough to actually have some money saved, so we can actually just go through it. And the staff, their family, they work there, very, very highly selected, from people who love people. Because one of the things that we said when we started 2112 was that everybody's welcome. Because I hated going out into a place looking long hair and beer and tattoos and not being welcome.
Yeah.
And they had no idea that I actually could afford to be there and drink this high-end shit, But So you never know who comes into your bar, and I think that's and and it shouldn't matter who it is because everybody is equal, and that's something I try to live with regardless. So in building up the place, we had people, working that kind of share that vision that everybody is welcome, and then we had people leave that it doesn't really work. So throughout these years, we have more and more people that are actually there and has been there for many years that we really wanted to make sure that they were taken care of because of the lack of support from the shitty government that we're having in Sweden. So I'm where we are now. I'm hoping that there won't be another pandemic because then it will be difficult.
Yeah, I mean I was kind of talking to Tom about that when he was on the podcast, and we're in an area right now where it seems like, I can't speak for any other country, but from what I see here in the States is it's like COVID is kind of an afterthought now. People are out doing whatever they want to do. Nobody's thinking about anything. And, everything's kind of good right now, but it's this kind of it seems to keep happening in waves. And I'm just hoping we don't get another huge wave that shuts everything down again.
Me too.
And
I mean, the thing is that I don't know. I mean, it seems like the government did the same in most, in America and most cities and countries around the world where they kind of put the restaurants, this is where it's most contagious, restaurant and music business. And as far as the restaurant goes, I mean, we have people trained to make sure people aren't too hammered, to make sure that people aren't, antsy or so that was probably the safest place to be. Yeah. Because, we had, and we tried to, I went out and I talked to a lot of different politicians, a lot of newspapers and TV to say that this is just bullshit because in Sweden, we were forced to close the restaurants at 8 o'clock. We were forced to have, like I said before, like a meter in between each person. You were not allowed to be more than 4 people at a table and stuff like that, which means like if you're a small place like 2112 that holds 70 people normally, you could maybe be 20.
Yeah.
But you still have all the same costs and you still have everything, but you can't get in the same type of money. So, I forgot where I was going with this, but it was really badly treated, and and when we closed at 8, people went to after parties with no restrictions.
Yeah.
Go figure.
It's everything, man. And the thing that, being somebody that worked in the music industry, the thing that was kind of upsetting to see was, I had talked with another musician about this. It's like what everybody's governments deemed as essential. So for example, every concert in Nashville was shut down. No concerts, no nothing. Yet they're still having hockey games at the 17,000 capacity arena every single night. Like, it's like, anybody can just look at that and be like, okay. So it's like, basically we've determined that all the big, massive $1 million businesses that we need to survive or can do whatever they want, but all the local businesses can't do anything.
Yeah. And we see the problem now because there's we don't have people working in the restaurant business now. We're opening up a new restaurant now, and it's really difficult to get people to work because they left the business because it was unsafe, or not unsafe as the business, but unsafe to work in it because you never knew when it was going to be opening it. So a lot of people had to retrain themselves into different professions, and so now we have that. We will have a lot of people going out of business. There's going to be a lot of tax money that's not going to come in. There's going to be a lot of unemployment. There's going to be a lot of social anxiety and depressions and maybe even suicides and the horrible things like that due to a government or governments around the world that refuses to listen to the little people.
Yeah, no, for
sure. That pissed me off. Still does.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it pissed off a lot of business owners, man. And even in the music industry, going along with what you were just saying, like over the pandemic, I think it was more roadies and crew people than, well, that would be unfair to say that it was just the roadies and the crew people because bands obviously had a hard time financially too. But a lot of these roadies that have made a living on touring for years found other jobs. So now all these tours that are going out in the States are having a really hard time staffing tours. I mean, everybody knows that I'm not going back out on the road full time. Like everybody that I know in the music community here, because I want to stay home with my daughter and stuff like that. I still get called once a week from somebody. It's like, dude, we can't find somebody for this tour. Is there any chance you can do it? And I'm just like, wow, that many people must have went and found different jobs over this.
Yeah.
It's wild, man. But you know, it does seem like things are not, I wouldn't say getting back to the way they were, because I don't think we're going to get back to that, but they're getting a little more normal. I mean, I went and saw my first concert a few months ago, and you know, a couple of years I went, there was actually a brand new venue in Nashville. They opened a Brooklyn Bowl here that was supposed to open in March of 2020, and they couldn't. So they started having their first shows, and I went and saw Ginger a few months ago. And they were fantastic, man. I was actually blown away by like how tight of a band they were live. But the energy at the show was incredible, because half the crowd was wearing masks, half the crowd weren't, but nobody seemed to care. Like everybody was there to have a good time for music, and it was a really cool moment. And I was going to see, it's actually funny, I was going to drive to Atlanta to see Nailed to Obscurity invited me to go to one of their shows, and they're like, yeah, we're on tour with Dark Tranquillity. And I was like, oh, okay. And we, at the time, our daughter was only like 7 months old or something, and she was having a fussy day. And I was like, I can't leave my wife alone for a day while I just go to a concert. Yeah. So I never went, but there's a lot of stuff coming to town here, man. I mean,
you scored some good points there, man. It's like the future reference. Yeah, you got it. That's think ahead.
Dude, yeah. I have, and you have kids, so you can probably relate to this. But dude, I have so much more respect for moms whose husbands like travel for work and stuff, because luckily I was home during this pandemic. I was able to help my wife and be here with our kid, but I right now I couldn't. We don't have family that lives near us, and that's a big part of what plays into it. I couldn't imagine leaving on a tour right now and leaving my wife have to deal with this for like weeks at a time with no family support or anything like that. So yeah, I pretty much have decided, you know, until my wife is comfortable with it, like I'm just going to stay home and help out and do the YouTube stuff in the meantime until we go out.
That's cool. Good.
Yeah. And it's great, man. A lot of roadies that I know have actually told me one of their biggest regrets in life was not taking some time off when their child was born. Like I have some friends that had kids and they were back out on the road 2 days later.
Yeah.
So, and
no, I know that. And I've done it too. I mean, I left when the kids were young as well. I don't really believe in regrets for myself. So it is what it is, but, could I redo it? I'd do it differently, definitely, and enjoy it more. Because I took some time off here and there, but you know, I didn't really enjoy it as much because I was always like 1 foot. You know, half of me felt like I was supposed to be on the road. Yeah, I couldn't really enjoy being home, so I would definitely do it different now and enjoy my time.
Actually, I subscribe to that same philosophy too. Like I don't regret anything I've ever done because it's got me to where I am right now in this moment. So
everything happens for a reason. Yeah,
exactly. And I firmly believe that. But yeah, it's been really cool because I've gotten to see every little thing that she's doing now. And she's at this age where she's just, I'm surprised she hasn't been banging on this door yet. Like,
yeah, I was actually thinking about that before.
I mean,
my kids are a little older, so I've told them that, you know, I'm going to be here now for a while.
Yeah. So. When I had Joachim from Sabaton on here, there was a moment while we were recording where you just hear pounding on the door and screaming, and I was like, "Sorry, man, 1-year-old," and he's like, "It's okay," you know. But it's cool. She's climbing everything, she's running everywhere, but she's just now starting to make words, which is pretty wild.
Amazing.
Yeah,
you got to cherish that. That's fantastic. You got to have some fantastic times before you. Yeah, I have my youngest is 9 and my oldest is 22. Okay. So it's like it's been I haven't slept for 23 years now, basically, because you know once she was old enough for that, then we got more, and then we got another one again, and then so it was always like doesn't live at home anymore, but when she was, it was always like, okay, I got to stay up until she's at home, and then I got to get up with the first one sometime, and then the middle kid needs breakfast at like 2-3 hours later. So it's like, well, I'll sleep when I'm 50. You know?
Yeah, I mean I've kind of accepted that now too. And the funny thing is all my friends that already had kids were like, when I told them we were going to have a kid, they're like, dude, enjoy your sleep now. And I had this cocky attitude where I was like, dude, I've been a roadie for 15 years. I'm used to working on 4 hours of sleep. I'll be fine. I was so fucking wrong. I'm so wrong. Like, neither of us have probably slept an entire night since she was born. And I even joked with Claire the other day. I was like, we'll sleep when she goes to college. or just moves out, whatever she wants.
That's the truth, you know?
Yeah. So
when she becomes like self-sufficient, you'll worry about other things.
Yeah. It is so funny watching what they get into, though. I mean, she's really, really into music. And at a young age, I'm very much into metal and rock and stuff. And my approach to music is if something makes me feel good, I'll listen to it. I don't care what genre it is.
Yeah.
But metal's always been my go-to, where my wife is more, my wife has a dance background and she's more into like R&B and soul and jazz and stuff like that. And we show different kinds of music to our daughter, but when she was really young, like months, like 3 months old, if she was fussy, I would play metal and she would always calm down. And I actually have a video on my phone of one night where she was just incredibly screamy and crazy. I turned on a live stream of Orbit Culture and she just passed out in my arms.
Yeah.
And our pediatrician...
I've done the same thing. Yeah. When they were kids, because I guess it's, with a lot of the rhythms and you got all the drums and it's kind of like a steady noise, if you will, and they, it calms you down.
That's what her doctor said. I was like, is there something about this? She goes, I don't know if there's science behind it, but she goes, I imagine a lot of metal probably sounds like white noise to a kid. And I was like, okay, that makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I mean,
sorry, I got a refill here.
No, you're good, man. It's actually funny that we've been talking about beer for so long, because one of my regrets is that not really regret, I say this jokingly, I actually don't drink anymore. So so
good for you.
If I ever get to Gothenburg, I always wanted to, years ago when I saw 2112 open, I was like, oh, I'd love to go there and try some beers and stuff. And I'll just try the food now instead, So
we got lots of non-alcoholic beers.
Oh, perfect.
That's becoming really, really big, which is great.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the times I just want we were just out skiing a couple of weeks ago and just wanted a beer. We sat, had some lunch and just wanted beer. And I had some, it's becoming more and more available. Yeah. And just having a nice, because like we discussed before, for me, it's mostly about the taste.
Yeah.
So I don't really care about if there's alcohol in it or not, as long as it tastes good. And that has been the problem in the past. But these days, there's so many breweries that actually do really, really good NA beers.
Yeah, I actually noticed that, because when I originally stopped drinking, the only thing I could usually find was O'Doul's, which is the most common in the U.S. And now if you go to the beer section in a store, there's probably about a dozen different, Sam Adams has an NA IPA. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff. And, it's funny because I loved beer. And I also went through that, as a young kid, you get hammered a lot. And then I went through this phase where I was all about the taste. Anytime we would go on tour anywhere in the U.S., a tour manager that I had, he and I would always go to smaller breweries wherever we were and just try whatever they had, local stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, I did get to a place again as an adult where I was just drinking to get hammered and I needed to stop. So I just stopped.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Good for you, man.
It's I can't blame anything other than myself, but I do attribute some of it to the music scene that I was in at the time. I was touring in country music, which I never thought I would do, but this may be surprising, but I think country bands party harder than any bands I've ever toured with in my entire life.
I would agree. We don't really have country in Sweden, but we have a similar style. It's called, it's dance band.
Yeah.
It's like, which is, it's the best equivalent to country, and they do party more than everybody else, and they do tour harder than everybody else, and it's insane.
Yeah. So I eventually got to that point where I was just like, I just have to be done for myself. And
Yeah,
it's funny because a lot of the times when I tell people I don't drink, I actually loved your response where you're just like, oh, cool, good job. Like
yeah,
a lot of people get weird. Like
yeah,
I'll go on a tour and somebody will offer me a beer and I'll be like, it's like, oh, I don't drink, sorry. And they'll get, oh my God, I'm so sorry. They act like they offended me and then they hide their beers away and stuff. I'm like,
yeah,
guys, I'm not like gonna explode if you have a beer around me. I'm like, I can sit and I go to bars with friends all the time that drink and I
yeah,
just don't, you know?
yeah. No,
But
but I mean, it isn't. It shouldn't be a thing either. For
yeah,
me, it's just natural. I got tons of friends that don't drink, and like I
yeah,
said, I like to drink, but I usually just drink a few, and
yeah.
because I like the taste of it, or you know. But it's not to get hammered for me.
Yeah, yeah. And that's great. Like seriously, I wish I had that capability. I just don't. I'm the kind of person that when I drink, I love the taste of beer, but I also
Yeah.
wanted the effect as well.
Well,
Um,
yeah, obviously, yeah. Me too sometimes, but it's. I mean, for now, having a beer is just nice.
yeah. And I'm sure you've seen it too, but being in the music industry, I was fortunate where I got to a point where I realized it before anything really bad happened because I've
Yeah.
I've I've had a lot of friends in the music industry that have lost careers or had to go to rehabs and for drugs and alcohol, and it's I feel like we don't need to continue this conversation in depth, but there's a lot of the times I want to bring it up on my channel when I talk to people is because it shouldn't be weird. Like
No.
people not drinking shouldn't be weird, and I feel like there are still people that think it is. And I actually had a band member that I did a reaction to recently reach out to me. I guess they looked at my stuff on Instagram and they saw that I didn't drink, and he was like, "Dude, it's like I'm sober too, but I've never really talked to anybody about it because I feel weird being in the music industry and telling people that I'm sober." And I was like, "Don't feel weird, man.
Yeah.
like, you know." If you saying out loud that you're sober helps somebody else out, then cool, you know.
That's what it is. I mean, I've done the last couple of tours that I did. I tried to have periods where I didn't drink at all because I was working out a lot, and I noticed that it freaked some people out, like
Yeah,
you said. Um, and and it's a difficult um, environment to do that. That's why I did it, because I wanted to make sure that I
yeah,
was okay with it, and it worked out well.
yeah,
So I no, I like the taste of beer, and obviously I like to get buzzed sometimes, but I'm a kind of a calm guy these days.
yeah, yeah. And I mean,
I'm
it's
saying these days.
yeah, these days. And it's
If somebody wants to discuss, oh, I've had 20
yeah,
beers with you once.
I
Yeah,
mean, and alcohol is such a normal thing. At least I can't speak to Sweden's culture because I don't live there, but at least in the U.S. it's just such a common thing. Even how I grew up in a small town where we had parties all the time. And then, I go to hockey games with friends and it's so common to drink at sporting events and stuff like that, that it does feel weird when you're the one that's like, no, no, I'm not going to have one today. you know?
yeah.
So
Well, oh yeah, it shouldn't be, but yeah.
yeah,
Let's move on. It's
yeah,
cool not to drink. I think.
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
as you say, it shows a lot of self control. Whatever, I think it's a good thing when whatever you decide to do, when you actually just stand up with it because it makes you feel better. Whether it's not drinking, not smoking, not doing anything. I think
Yeah.
whatever it is, as long as it makes you feel good, that's great.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, if I ever make it out to Gothenburg, I'll try one of your NAs instead. Um,
Please do.
yeah. So one of the things I've noticed every time I've ever seen you play with any band or doing anything is you've almost your entire career, it seems you've played Ibanez SR basses. Have you played
Well,
anything else?
yeah, I have. But Ibanez SR basis has always been my dream bass. When I grew up, I had people. Obviously, I had posters of my idols as well, but I had posters of bass guitars on my wall. That's how nerdy I was. And I played ESPs for quite some time. I had Spectre for some time as well. Played with those, and but then this one time I was actually approached with somebody who used to work for Ibanez, who came up to me and said, followed you for a while now, and I think I know what you like, and I have a bass for you if you want to try it out. And I was like, it was an SR bass, obviously, and I was like, yes, please, I'd love to try it. And I did, and we had a relationship for a bunch of years, and I loved Ibanez basses. I still play them, obviously, as you noticed, and I still work with them.
Yeah.
I believe in playing stuff that I like. I believe in, if I do collaborations, whether it's music or clothing or even food and stuff like that, I want to only work with people that I enjoy talking to, and brands and products that I can endorse, straight from my heart. And Ibanez has always been that, and they've always been very good with me. So yeah.
What as an actual musician and artist, like, how cool was it the first time that you got to make like your own signature bass with that company?
Dude, they were so cool.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. I think I have one of those here actually, and maybe I'm not sure if this is the.
Because
Yes, it is.
You had 3 of them, right?
Yeah, this is the second one.
Yeah.
PIB2. The PIB1 is black. Don't think it's here, but yeah, and this is the third one.
The red one.
Still, yeah.
Yeah.
What? Hitting it in the ceiling.
That's great, man.
Yeah, this was actually cool. This is a little nerdy. This is the color is actual blood. I took a blood sample to.
Oh no!
The right
to match
color.
The color.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super cool.
But yeah, now I usually play these. The prestigious.
Yep.
This is a. Yeah. Oh, this is a. Yeah. I really like these ones. I have another one over there that I'm fixing right now because it's something in the electronic department fucked up. But I love Ibanez basses.
Are you pretty particular on 5 strings now? Because I know for a while you were playing 6s, or does it just depend on what you're doing?
No, I played 6s for a while, but I kind of realized that I rarely used the thinnest string, so I went back to 5s, and I always play 5s now.
Okay.
I have a kind of a weird tuning, I've been told, but it works for me. It's because a lot of times we tune down to C, and then the guitar players would drop it into A sharp. So instead of doing that, for me, I kind of kept the C string and added B string, but the B string is tuned in A sharp. So I got what is it? D sharp, A sharp, F, C, A sharp again. So these two are the same.
Oh, okay, cool.
So it's every time I sit with Niklas or somebody and write, and we try to play each other's stuff, it's like we can't look at each other's fingers because it's all fucked up. We just have to listen to it. If I'm here, he's gonna be here.
That's
why I really, it's just something that worked really well for me, because then I could always transcribe each, because the first years with In Flames, they were always only tuning to D sharp, I think, and then it was D, and then it was C, and then it was a couple of songs that was drop D on the C string into A sharp. So I just figured I'd do this, and that's why I had the 6 string also in the beginning, because it was just easier for me to never change tuning.
Yeah.
But went back to the 5 string, and I do it like this.
That's interesting, knowing that now, because I think when I was playing along with a lot of the stuff from like Clayman and stuff when I was younger, I think I just tuned it to drop, I think A sharp or A, one of the two. That's really cool, man. I love I love nerding over the gear. And then I saw in the last video, and I never know with music videos, even though I always talk about the gear that I see. Do you use EB when you play live for cabinets and heads and stuff?
EBS?
Or EBS, sorry. Yeah.
Yes, I do. Actually, I posted a picture today of my 2 new heads that I got. That I was going to try them. I thought I had a cabinet in at the brewery where I keep some of my equipment. So I went there and I collected, and I was going to collect. Fuck, I didn't have a cabinet. So it's like kind of, okay, I'll take it to the studio instead and plug it in there. I use EBS. Same thing there. Great people, became good friends over the years, and really believed in me, in my music, in my tone, and I think it was very when I left In Flames, I reached out to my endorsers before, and I told them that this is going to happen. And I'd like to thank you for all these years. You know, I'm not sure when I knew that I was going to do Syra, so we did that. But I'm not sure on which level we're going to do everything. So I completely understand if you want to, you know, stop working with me, and no hard feelings. And both Ibanez and EBS came back. Like, this is not the end. This is just the next chapter. You know, we support you. You know, and I think that was so classy. You know.
Yeah.
So I'm as long as they'll have me, I'll keep playing their instruments and you know, using the cabs of EBS and trying out whatever they have, you know, because they've always been really, really good. And I really like the stability in the amps and the tone and the pressure and everything that they've achieved. I used to play Ampeg, and I still love Ampeg as well, but I started using EBS for everything.
Yeah, I played Ampeg, all Ampeg everything when I was in a band and when I was younger too. But EBS seems like one of those like really well kept secrets of a company, because in the US, not really that popular. I think the only couple times I've seen EBS in bands that I've been watching were with you, and then I know the bass player for Dirty Loops, another Swedish band, like he uses EBS
Henrik,
as well.
yeah.
Oh, dude. The first time I discovered them, I was just like, Jesus.
Yeah.
Like,
the Justin Bieber cover, Baby.
I
you got to see that.
I don't know if I've heard that one.
Dude, you got to see it. That's how they became, you know, big first, the first hit.
Really?
I think it's called Baby, right? Baby,
yeah.
Baby.
Oh, yeah.
And he does a bass solo in it that is so amazing. And they've done so much other stuff.
I don't
but
know.
Yeah, he's a big EBS endorser. You got, I mean, I hooked up with John from Lamb of God for EBS for some time. I don't know if he still plays them, or maybe if it was just for the pedals. But I've hooked up quite a lot of players, but I'm not sure who plays it now because of the same reason. They weren't big in America, but I know that they were a solid product.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when I was reading the first time I saw EBS. I always nerd out when I find a company that I don't know a lot about. And I started reading, and it was like, like 2 years ago, one of their bass heads was like bass amp of the year in Bass Player magazine and stuff. And I was like, that's so wild.
That was the Fafner too, right?
Yeah. No, was
it the Raidmar?
No, it was the, it didn't have a like an actual name to it. It was like letters and numbers. I think it was like the EBS. Is it an 800 or something like that? Or
the 802 maybe. The 802 is what I got today.
Okay, that might have been it.
Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're so good. I got it right here. You can't see. Well, I can turn. I got the beside my precious little ship here.
Yes.
I got the Fafner 2 and the Raidmar.
Oh, nice.
And then some other stuff there, as you can see.
Yeah.
And I got a fridge.
Oh, nice. The Marshall fridge.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm a nerd. I have so much.
That's great. I was telling you before we started, it's funny, like, I've been just looking around at the collection here and there, all the Star Wars stuff. And as I told you earlier, Richard from Orbit Culture is the same way. He has his office room in his house is like all Star Wars memorabilia, and that's pretty much all his Instagram is every time he gets something new, he's just posting all of it.
Like I was telling you before, I was like, I have my moments when I go into shopping, when I feel I want all the original Kennel dolls, the original, and I don't have them all. I think I'm missing like 12 figurines or something like that, to 10. And I go in and I buy something, then most people don't want to sell me just one thing. They want to sell me their whole collection, or, you got to buy these. So I got a big box there of extra figurines that I'm going to sell off at some point. And there was one guy who offered me, you got all I have the missing figurines for you. It's like, do you want them? And it was like ridiculous amount of money. I was like, no, because then the hunt will be over,
Yeah.
I kind of want to do this slowly. So now I'm not in a buying mode, but if somebody has this, have them reach out. I mean, I'm on forums and nerd away, but I kind of have to stop because I bought too much stuff. But
I went in these phases when we'd go on tour where I would also buy like collectibles or just things that I liked just for fun. And it's like, you can see if I turn up here, I have a bunch of like the pop figurines.
Yeah.
And I went through a phase when we were on tour where I would just every day off, I would go out and look for those, but I wasn't looking for like anything. I only grabbed the ones of stuff that like I actually like. So I have a lot of video game and comic related ones and a lot of sports related ones. And then I fell out of that phase. And ever since I started YouTube, it's been vinyls. Like every time I pre-order an album from a band now, I always get the vinyl too. So people on YouTube joke that pretty soon I'm not going to have room. The thing is, I have a stack of like 24 vinyls right here that I haven't worked up the motivation to, put them on the wall yet. And it'll be fun. Like I start interchanging them out and stuff like that. And it's pretty cool. But, it's so interesting to me that vinyls have started becoming a thing again because
I mean, it's awesome. It's like you can't download a vinyl, it's a piece of art.
Yeah.
No, I love it too. Although I gotta admit, I'm not a big record buyer at all. Like I said, I listen to a lot of old music. But both Michael and Niklas, they're huge record collectors, and it's insane. Yeah. It's insane how much they have.
Yeah. To be 100% honest, most of it is for just visuals. Like I admit I don't listen to vinyl. Like most of the time when I'm doing work at my computer, I just pull up, what I've already bought or Spotify. And when I'm on tour, I listen to Spotify when I'm working on guitars and stuff. But, I remember trying to tell my dad that vinyls were becoming a thing again. He goes, no fucking way. And I was like, yeah, like, he's like, I thought everything's digital now. I'm like, it is, but everybody's into vinyls again. And he's like, you think that's going to happen with CDs? I was like, no. There's something about the vinyls that are just like people dig. And then the funniest part is when the vinyls are incorrect. Like, so for example, the Orbit Culture vinyl that I have on the wall was actually printed wrong. So it doesn't even have their album on it. It's just like noise.
But then that becomes collectible.
Yeah.
It's like I've heard people talk. Oh yeah, look at the third pressing of the 1976 version, but it's supposed to be 1975. It's like, well, I love nerdiness too, but that's I'm not interested in that. I'm more of a Star Wars geek. I exploded when I got these Star Wars beers right there.
Oh no way! That's cool.
I don't have them all but that's what was available in Sweden. And as you can see behind that, there's a big tray of Star Wars stuff in there.
Yeah,
so, big box.
Yeah,
but
I love stuff like that, man. I mean, for me, when I was younger, I was really big into comic books. I was a big Marvel guy, so I have a lot of comics and stuff like that. Nowadays, I'm really into video games, but my go-to is like very sci-fi type out there stuff. I mean, it's probably one of the reasons I always loved Star Wars and stuff so much too, is because I just love that kind of sci-fi stuff.
Yeah, me too. Amazing.
Yeah. That's awesome. Is there anything else that you really collect other than the Star Wars stuff, or not really? Just gear?
No, just gear. Yeah. I have I wouldn't say I'm a hoarder, but it would look like it if you look down here. There's bunch of stuff, but that's just only because I've moved from a bigger place to a small place. But no, I don't like throwing stuff away. I really don't. I have a hard time doing that. But no, I don't really collect anything. It's just the Star Wars stuff is kind of something that I need, you know. But like I said, I don't want it to be over, because right now I'm out of. I'm not buying anything right now. So, but once I'll start looking again, and I love that, when you find the stuff you need and you got to see if it's the original, because there's a lot of scam artists there as well. If you get a blue saber, it's fake, but it's and stuff like that, It's but no, not something else that I collect. Maybe bass guitars. I got a couple.
Yeah,
a few here.
I see that.
Oh, this is nothing. I have way more, because that's something that I buy, and I have lots of bass guitars, and I love it. And in my previous studio, I could have it all on the wall because it was so big. Yeah. Now it's laying in the attic in closed cases with I have something like. Temperature watch, so it always stays the same temperature, because that's really, really important when it comes to instruments. But so I go up there sometimes and I open the cases and I look at them. It's like, oh, there you are.
That's awesome.
That's nerdy.
That's like, dude, when I watch Herman Lee on his Twitch streams, dude, the room wherever he streams from, it looks like a Guitar Center.
Yeah.
He has like 40 guitars on his wall. And I
Yeah.
remember someday somebody in chat one day was like, "Man, you have a lot of guitars." And he's like, "Oh, that's not even all of them." I'm just
Yeah.
like, "Damn, dude." Like,
Well, that's how it is. I'm the same. It's
yep,
like
yep.
I haven't counted it, but yeah, I have more than 40 bass guitars, and I love every single one of them.
Yeah. It did the temperature control that you just mentioned made me think of something awful on tour once. Um, a band in Nashville thought it would be a good idea to get like a temperature controlled semi truck, and somebody convinced them that for their guitars and stuff it would be better. The problem with that is though when you're touring like in the summer in the United States and it's upwards of 35 degrees Celsius and
Yeah.
your truck is constantly at 17. There was a guitar tech that opened a guitar vault one day, and that drastic temperature change from their climate controlled truck to the room that they were in cracked all of the acoustics they had in one entire guitar vault.
Oh,
And I was just like, so I had an artist that I worked for the past 5 years that asked like, "Hey, do you think we should get a climate controlled truck?" And I was like, "No, do
no,
not do that."
don't
Like,
do it. No, no.
if you're storing instruments, that's one thing. But if you're transporting them around the country, you want those to stay the same temperature that it is everywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, for
So,
sure.
but well, man, before we start wrapping up here, because I know you've got more media and stuff like that, I just want to ask. I like to ask all the artists this. With your new album coming out on August 12th, especially with how music is nowadays and stuff like that, what would you recommend are some of the best ways that fans can support your band or their favorite bands, whether it's financial or not?
Interesting. I haven't thought about it. I mean, as weird as it might sound, I'm not in this to make money. I'm in this to have fun. So for the best way to support the Halo Effect is, listen to our music wherever you can find it. If you download it or if you buy it or if you stream it, whatever makes you happy, I'll be happy because that's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
For me and for us, it's just getting the music out there. And obviously, everybody needs money to go around. But this is straight out of. It sounds maybe stupid, but it's straight out of love. And so I don't, whatever you want to do to
Yeah.
support, it'll make me happy.
Yeah. No, I don't think that sounds stupid at all, man. I mean, don't get me wrong. Everybody likes to make money, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if you're not doing something that you love doing, why do it? You know?
No, but exactly. I mean, it's. I think everybody should try and support in whatever way they can.
Mm-hmm.
If you can go to a show, if you can buy a T-shirt, if you can download a CD or a CD. I said a CD, but yeah, download the music. That's how old I am.
Yeah.
I think there are no. I mean, obviously, don't steal music. I think don't do that, please.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, just do it whatever possible way you can to that you can afford because. I could never ask people for money that way. I would never ask for somebody to do that. Just do it in whatever way works for you.
Yeah.
As long as you enjoy the music.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's the one thing about the YouTube reaction thing is, even before I started doing it, I didn't start YouTube and decide I wanted to do reactions. Like it became a thing. But I find the concept of it very interesting. And I don't say that because I'm doing it. I've been watching reactions before I started doing it on YouTube. It's almost like listening to music with one of your friends just hanging out again. And we see this argument all the time on YouTube because there are a lot of people that think YouTube reactors are just absolute trash people and trash content because
is it? Yeah.
I mean, they don't understand that, like how a lot of the YouTube stuff works. A lot of people assume that these reactors are uploading videos and making all that ad revenue off of the views based off somebody else's video. But unless a record label or a band or a publisher is clearing that copyright to allow that person to monetize, like reactors aren't really making money. And for me, again, going back to the music discovery thing, even watching other reactors on YouTube has made me like buy merchandise and buy music and stuff. So, trying to be as objective as possible, not as somebody that also has a YouTube page for this, but it's very interesting to see how bands have gotten different kinds of exposure over the last couple of years during the pandemic with everybody watching YouTube.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think there are bands that you would talk to that would straight up tell you a lot of their exposure was from people sharing and reactors reacting and stuff. You know, a great example of that is Electric Callboy from Germany. Yeah. Dude, they have been around for 10 years, and they've always done pretty well in the German market, but they had a music video go viral 2 years ago, and now everybody's sharing their stuff. Everybody's reacting to their videos. They're touring. They just announced a tour in Europe next year, and half of the dates are arenas. And this is a band that their whole career were playing like, you know, 500 to 1,000 cap clubs. And when I've talked to them, they're like, yeah, it's because over the pandemic, so many people shared our music and our videos, you know.
That's super cool. I mean, it's always going to be like new ways to share music and to react. And there's always going to be like haters, like you said, that people think that certain people are trash. But it's always going to be like that. That's why you always have to do what you want to do yourself, you know, and that it doesn't really matter if somebody else doesn't like it, whether it's playing music or reacting to music or just sharing. I'm a firm believer of doing what makes you feel happy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting to see, especially like the label that you guys are with, you know, Nuclear Blast. They, as well as a handful of others, have really started to utilize YouTube like a new form of marketing. Like, it's really impressive to see how some of these labels have gotten ahead of the curve and actually like stay in touch with a lot of these YouTubers, because even before stuff is coming out, like I'll get an email from somebody at Nuclear Blast is like, hey, here's a handful of our videos release dates that are coming out just in case you wanted to check this out.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah. And I mean, Century Media is another one that does that. And it's like, they've told me, it's like, you know, with times constantly changing, especially in the music industry and the new forms of everything that's coming out, it's like, this is like our basically YouTube reactions are like our new form of marketing outlet that we don't need to really put a lot of time into.
No, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's I love this coming back into the music industry after a couple of years, seeing how it's changed and developed and like you just said, like certain areas where it becomes a totally new way of discovering music or sharing music. I think that's, you know, it feels like I was away for 25 years instead of, you know, 5.
Interesting.
So I'm really intrigued to see what's going to come next.
Yeah. I never thought about that. That's interesting. No, like the little bit of time that you did spend away, I got to imagine there probably has been a lot of big changes.
Well, yeah, and I never thought about it either. It's just I discovered, you know, a lot of stuff that's new, and I enjoy it.
Yeah,
I'm learning. When an old guy learning new stuff, it's like, you know.
So before we go, I just want to remind anybody that's listening that the debut Halo Effect record, Days of the Lost, is coming out August 12th from Nuclear Blast Records. If anybody's watching this on YouTube, I'll have links below where you can check all the social medias and the pre-orders and all that stuff. You guys are going to be on tour with Machine Head and Amon Amarth. That's going to be a blast.
Yeah. It's going to be great.
I hope that our times allow you guys to get to the U.S. at some point. I do have plans.
We'll get there. Absolutely.
Yeah, I do have plans to go to Europe eventually for some shows, and maybe worst case, I'll check you out over there. But I would absolutely love to see a show when you guys come over here.
Yeah, I mean, that's the plan. I can't say when and I can't say where, but obviously we want to tour the US as well.
Yeah. Well, that'll be great. Well, Peter, thank you very, very, very much for your time. I want to give you a little break before you have to keep doing more media.
That's all good, man. It's I got a long break now, so that's good. I'll go out and see what the kids are doing.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Sun is still shining here in Gothenburg. You can't believe it. Never does. Yeah, so this is great.
It's what time is it there? It's almost 9, right?
No, it's 20 to 7.
Oh, that's right. We started at 5 o'clock your time. I thought we started at 7. That makes sense. So, Well, hey, enjoy this nice little break. Enjoy the sunshine. Thank you very much for your time. Can't wait for the new record, and maybe one of these days we'll have you back after the record comes out and after you toured
Oh,
and
I'd
see
love
what's
to.
new.
Thank you so much. This
Yeah,
was really nice. Really
awesome,
nice
man. Well,
chat.
yeah. Well, once again, thank you very much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
You as well. Cheers, man.
Cheers. These podcast episodes, when we initially film them, are always so interesting to me because there's so much information that we've talked about in that time frame that I sometimes forget everything that we talked about in the moment. And sometimes I get very super critical of myself, and I think that the conversation wasn't as good as I thought it was or anything like that. But I gotta say, when I went back and edited this episode, what you guys just heard, I was so happy with this, man. I mean, it was, if I can just be honest and like a little kid for a second, it was just so cool to sit down with him, man. I mean, like I said in the intro, this guy was one of like my heroes as a bass player when I was growing up. And now as an adult, I'm in the position where I got to have him on and talk about not only his new band and his gear and stuff, but his businesses. And it was just super awesome, man. And I know that these bands always have so much going on, especially with media, with new albums coming out. So I really just want to take a second to one more time say thank you very much to Peter for giving us the time to talk and film this episode. And I hope that all of you guys that are listening enjoyed it, man. You know, just as a reminder, that Halo Effect album does come out on August 12th, 2022. It's called Days of the Lost. It's being released by Nuclear Blast Records. Pre-orders are already available, so if you would like to support the band ahead of time before it comes out, you can check the links in the description of this video if you're watching on YouTube. But if you are listening on audio somewhere else, you can check out the haloeffect.band to see all of their social media links, the new videos they have out, and pre-order that record. Because I've said this a million times, but pre-orders are way more important for bands than just financially, man. These pre-orders show booking agents where bands should tour because of how many people have bought it from certain areas. And it also helps with chart entries and stuff like that. So just know that you're doing a lot more than just giving your money to these bands when you pre-order an album like this. And I'm excited for it. I think it's going to end up being one of my favorites of the entire year, but we'll find out in another couple months, man. And if you're ever in the Gothenburg, Sweden area, be sure to go check out Peter's Brewery, Odd Island Brewing, or his restaurant, 2112. I know if I ever get to that area, I'm going to be going over there as well because it'd be super cool to check that out. So once again, thank you to Peter, and thank you to everybody that's watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, Google, Apple, or anywhere else that you can listen to podcasts. This has been wild, man. 10 episodes now, and I already have a few more ready to go, and we still have a full schedule of people that are going to come on, and you know, it's cool, man. That's all I can really say. This is super cool. Be on the lookout for the next episode, because this is going to be the first time that I'm actually going to have another YouTuber on the actual podcast with me. Well, kinda. Because, you know, Grant Truesdell and Vicky Sirakis and all them, they do Twitch and content and stuff too. But I'm going to be having Elizabeth from The Charismatic Voice on for episode 11 of the Back Lounge podcast. And it's really cool because while we know each other from doing YouTube content and stuff like that, that was the longest we've actually gotten to sit down and speak to each other and really talk about a lot. And, you know, she did recently have her first child, and we actually recorded this podcast before that happened. So we talked about a lot of that coming up and parenting and her traveling all over the world and how she grew up with music. And it's super cool, man. I'm super excited to bring that to you as well. So yeah, keep on the lookout for that. Keep on the lookout for a lot more coming up. And if anybody wants to follow me on any other social medias, I'm pretty active on Instagram and stuff like that. You can check me out at the handle at TankTheTech. Just as a reminder for anybody listening on audio, if you would like to see the video format of this, where you can actually see myself and our guests, you can check me out at youtube.com/TankTheTech. But I understand a lot of people love to listen to these in their car and at the gym, and I'm the same way. So you can also find this on Spotify, Google, Apple, and a ton of other outlets, probably some that I'm actually not even aware of, to be honest. But this was episode 10. I had a blast. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, be safe, be kind to each other, and I'll see you guys very soon for another episode.